we know what's going on in Scott County, and the state implemented a needle exchange program there because of the outbreak of hepatitis C. Anderson and Madison County is just getting ready to declare a public emergency and are looking at a needle exchange program. Of course, they got to get approval from the Department of Health, but there's no state funds for that program. So all the money's got to be raised locally, and I was just wondering if the state has considered any way to provide some funding to maybe get communities over that hump of starting a program. A needle, it costs about $1 a piece.
Well, let me say first and foremost, I am encouraged by the progress that we've made in Scott County in confronting what was nothing short of an epidemic in HIV in that community. When this was called to my attention early in the year, when we began to see some of the numbers up, I met with the Centers for Disease Control personnel, I met with our health personnel, and they told me at that time that anytime you have a significant statistical break from the average of any disease, that it's an epidemic. And in a county the size of Scott County, which is much smaller in population than Madison County, the average number of HIV cases was 5. We were many multiples of that at the time that we began to evaluate this and were approached by health officials. I made a decision to declare a public health emergency there and to provide a short-term set of resources, personnel through the health department, through our Family and Social Services, and also authorize a short-term needle exchange program. We've made progress in Scott County. My last report I received suggests that the number of new cases we're identifying is beginning to fall off dramatically. We're encouraged that with a combination of public health efforts as well as law enforcement efforts that we may be getting our arms around the situation in Scott County. But I signed 2 executive orders there, but then we worked closely with the General Assembly to craft legislation that would give communities the opportunity to request, for the purpose of a public health emergency, the authority to use similar countermeasures. And we worked very closely with members of the General Assembly to craft that legislation. I want to be very clear. I don't support needle exchange as anti-drug policy. But I do believe that when you are faced with a public health emergency, that it's an appropriate tool for health officials to have people essentially come out of the shadows, stop reusing needles. I mean, it was alarming, Ken, that we determined that 100% of the HIV cases in Scott County were sourced to exchanging needles between HIV positive people. So having people come forward, not only in the needle exchange, but then getting them signed up for a treatment program, getting them on medicine that will lower the presence of the HIV disease in their bloodstream, which actually helps their health but also makes them less contagious. But all of that, I believe, is an appropriate strategy going forward. What I would say is, with regard to this community, we now have put in place a framework for communities to evaluate public health circumstances in their area, and I would leave those decisions to the state health department, both from the standpoint of authorizing the appropriateness of those measures from a health standpoint, and also any resources that the state might need to make available. It was Scott County. I'm proud of our health team. I'm proud of the local health team in Scott County. I'm proud of our law enforcement team that we leaned into that effort and confronted it in a way that's producing real results. And now we have a framework where communities can evaluate what their needs are and have a framework to be able to petition for similar assistance.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken.